أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين لا سيما خاتمهم وأفضلهم محمد مصطفى صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى أهل بيت الطهارة لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين الحجة ابن الحسن أجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك، عليك منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعل الله الآخر العهد منا لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وقوله الحق: لقد خلقنا الإنسان في أحسن التقويم ثم رددناه أسفل السافلين. آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. My elders, dearest brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can everyone hear me at the back? Wonderful. Pardon me? A little bit louder. Okay, sure. Can we do a little bit louder? Okay. Before we get in, because of nervousness, many things were forgotten last night. So I will point them out just now. One is that you will see on the screen and on the Organization of Islamic Learning's social media sites a series of questions, reflective questions. One of the takeaways that we would like you to sort of go away with is to look at those questions and reflect on those questions. You don't have to, it's not something you have to come back and answer for, but they're questions that are designed to be reflective, to assist you in the reflection process of the things that we discuss over the course of our time together. So that's that. A quick summary from last night's talk. In last night's lecture, we began by expressing thanks and gratitude to all those who made this journey possible. And while nerves prevented me from expressing it, the lecture last night was dedicated to all of them. I will, as the course of the nights, as we go on, dedicate each lecture to a group of people or an individual who have inspired me both from my past and my present. We then went on to introduce the concept of the Fiṭrah, the greatest, most merciful blessing of God for His abd. This pristine spirit of His that keeps us connected to Him, and when kept free of our own man-made conditioning and baggage, serves to be the foundation of our moral compass. We then went on to identify the 7 types of people God declares His explicit love for in the Quran. Specifically, the 7 core values which are contained within potentia inside the container of the Fiṭrah. We realize that we don't need to go to and fro to find these virtues, but to rather discover them within ourselves, uncover them if need be, and nurture and develop them. We then explored how when the Fiṭrah is awake and when these virtues are manifesting and resonating at their highest level, they fuse together to culminate with al-insan al-kamil, the complete or the whole human. We introduced this vast concept very briefly and all that's encompassed in it. We then discussed the fact that these concepts and ideals are not out of our reach, and our humanness is not an obstacle to achieve them, but rather enhances the journey to become whole and complete. We then wept with our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as he held his dying son and learned that our tears don't make us less spiritual. They make us more beautifully human. Tonight, we take the next step on this healing journey. Before I begin and continue with tonight's discussion, I pause to express my gratitude with a dedication for tonight's lecture. Tonight, I pay homage to a man who made me who I am today. Yes, there are many who played a role on a level, and I mentioned them last night, but this man single-handedly is responsible for pulling me out of my darkness and showed me the light that was shining on me all along, which is the light of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was my friend, he was my brother, he was my guide, he was my spiritual mentor, he was my sheikh. In a world where charlatans and frauds are aplenty, he was as real as they come. In a time when spiritual wayfaring is desired, yet incredibly feared and misunderstood, he was the guide that I desired, the one that taught me to overcome my fears. He was Sheikh Osman Bokum, and he is the reason I am both alive and here in your presence today. I lost my best friend to tragedy over a decade ago, but his spirit, his soul, and his teachings are alive within me, perhaps more so now than when he was alive. Please join me in reciting a Surah Fatiha for my Shaykh and all our dearly departed ones. Tonight, we explore Taqwā, a word that might frighten us because we think it means being perfect, never struggling, and always having our spiritual life together. I'd like to, for a moment, involve you in this discussion, and I'd like to ask two questions, and they'll pass you the mic if you'd like to answer the question. Number one, what do you think Taqwā is? And second of all, what is the presence of Taqwā in your life? It's an invitation. Nobody should feel compelled, but it is a kind invitation for you to participate. Any volunteers?
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam rahmatullah.
As I understand Taqwā, it means God consciousness. And for me, it is whenever I perform an act that I'm cognizant of the fact that Allah is watching me.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ahsant. Anybody else? Come on, gents. If you don't answer, then Aziz Uncle's going to answer, yeah? So, anyone? There's no right or wrong answer. Oh, tough crowd. No problem. Many times, please. Salam rahmatullah.
I think the Taqwā is the linkage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's the last stage of ibadat. When you become so pure in your life, that you feel that you should be good friend, good human being, and you can take care of others. That is the purity of Taqwā. So when you have Taqwā in your life, you feel that God is there watching everything, and that is very, very important. It's the last use, because we start from namaz, salat, and then we read the salat because we think that is very, very important to read and to talk to God. And then we start purifying ourselves, our thought and thinking, and then we reach to that stage which is called Taqwā. Thank you.
Ahsan, thank you very much. Beautiful answer. Many times we might think that taqwa is that thing that prevents us from committing sin, or helping us, that consciousness that leads us to avoid sin. But my question is, What if there was more to taqwa than just avoiding sin and Allah's displeasure? Often we operate from a basic but necessary level of consciousness, one rooted in the fear of invoking God's displeasure and wrath. And this isn't foreign to us. It's how many of us navigate our closest relationships too. We tread carefully to avoid hurting those we love, be it a spouse, a parent, a child, or a friend. But what if taqwa wasn't just about restraint out of fear? What about transformation out of love? Think of a child who no longer just avoids disobedience to escape punishment. We've all been there. But begins to act with tenderness and maturity simply because they love their parent and can't bear to see them hurt. Something shifts, not just in behavior, but in their very being. This perhaps is the deeper taqwa that the Quran alludes to, not merely the avoidance of harm, but the cultivation of inner refinement, a movement from external compliance to internal alignment. So the real question becomes, can we love God so fully that avoiding what displeases Him is no longer about fear, but about fidelity? Can our hearts be so attuned to His nearness that we no longer ask, what am I forbidden from doing? But instead ask, what version of me brings me closer to Him? That's not just taqwa, that is intimacy. And that's the path of the awliya, the saints, and the friends of God. But my beloved souls, what if I told you that the deepest taqwa, the most beautiful God consciousness, blooms not when we hide our struggles, but when we bring them honestly into Allah's loving presence? Please recite a salawat. In challenging common misconceptions, the question is, how many of us have been living quietly, breaking inside, thinking that our sadness means that we don't trust God enough? How many of us have hidden our anger, believing that good Muslims never feel upset? How many have worn the masks of spiritual peace while their hearts cry out for authentic connection? Tonight we will attempt to heal these wounds by returning to what taqwa truly means. My promise to you tonight is that we will explore how real taqwa actually grows in the soil of emotional honesty. Learn why hiding from our struggles, learn why hiding from our struggles from Allah blocks the very closeness that we seek. And witness how Imam al-Hussein showed us the most beautiful taqwa through his complete openness to both human pain and divine test during his final night on this earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran on taqwa, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullaha haqqa taqatihi. O you who have faith, be conscious of God with the consciousness due to Him. Taqwa is not just fear that makes us small and anxious. It is the profound, tender awareness that God is always with us. In our joy, in our sorrow, in our strength, and in our brokenness. It is the gentle consciousness that asks not, am I perfect, but am I real with my beloved? Are my heart and actions moving towards what brings Him joy? Remember the beautiful truth from last night. Taqwa isn't something foreign. Taqwa isn't something foreign that we need to import into our lives. It's already planted in the garden of our souls by way of the beautiful container of the Fiṭrah that contains it. When we water this seed with honest awareness, it grows into a living relationship with God. The integration imperative. Here's what will set our hearts free. Allah doesn't want part of us. He wants all of us. Our struggles, our questions, our moments of doubt, our times of joy, all of it belongs in the relationship with Him. True taqwa isn't about compartmentalizing our lives into spiritual and human boxes. It's about bringing our whole authentic selves into a conscious relationship with our Creator. Please recite a salawat. When Allah declares His love for the al-muttaqeen, those who live with taqwa, He is not loving our perfection. He is loving our consciousness, our willingness to stay awake to His presence even in difficulty. This divine love is an invitation. Come to me as you are, aware that I am with you, and let that awareness to transform as you live. So when we realize that in this relationship, that Allah does not expect perfection from us, our job and our role is to bring ourselves into that relationship, our vulnerable selves. Without vulnerability, that connection and that relationship with Allah is simply not possible. And one of the things that becomes the biggest impediment in that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is something known as spiritual bypassing or spiritual avoidance. There is a hidden wound in many sincere hearts, the belief that to be close to God, we must pretend that our struggles don't exist. This shows up as whispers in our souls. Number one, if I really trusted Allah, I wouldn't feel this anxious, or I wouldn't feel this depressed, or I wouldn't feel this negativity. Number two, good Muslims don't get depressed. Number three, I should just pray more and stop feeling so much. And number four, spiritual people have it all figured out. Why this breaks our connection to God? When we hide our real selves in the name of spirituality, we actually move away from true closeness with God. Why? Because, number one, we're rejecting His creation. He made our hearts capable of feeling everything for a reason. Number two, we become strangers to ourselves, unable to offer authentic prayers. Number three, we miss the gifts hidden in our struggles, the growth, the compassion, the humility that come through conscious suffering. And number four, we develop spiritual pride instead of tenderness that draws us nearer to Him. And there are costs, very real costs associated with this emotional suppression. When we consistently avoid our emotional truth, our prayers become performances rather than conversations. We judge others for struggling with what we're secretly struggling with. We miss the profound lessons God wants to teach us through our expression and experiences. We become spiritually rigid rather than genuinely surrendered. The way back to authentic taqwa is surprisingly very gentle. God already sees our hearts in its totality. He's waiting for us to become conscious of what He already knows. Our fears, our anger, our confusion, none of it surprises Him. What He desires is our willing awareness, our conscious conversation with Him about the reality of our inner world. In other words, He knows everything about us. It's we who have not reached a level of self-awareness to understand everything that's going on with us. And the more we understand about ourselves and the more awareness we gain about ourselves, the more we can bring ourselves into that relationship, the more we can make ourselves vulnerable and connect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tonight's case study on taqwa goes back to Imam al-Hussein, who practiced ultimate taqwa through complete integration. If we want to see what happens when the heart lives in complete taqwa, conscious of Allah's presence in every breath, every tear, every moment of difficulty, we look to Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam on his final night on this earth. Facing certain death, watching his family prepare for unimaginable suffering. He shows us that the deepest consciousness blooms not in comfort, but in complete honesty about our human reality. So on to the story. Taqwā under ultimate pressure. Let me share with you a story that will perhaps change how we understand what it means to be conscious of God. A story of a heart so connected to its Creator that even facing ultimate darkness, it could create light for others. The sacred night. The night before Ashura was unlike any other night in human history. Death circled the camp like a patient predator. Every soul in those tents knew that sunrise would bring the end of everything that they held dear. In these sacred, terrible hours, Imam al-Hussein faced a choice that reveals the essence of true taqwa. He could have distracted his family from the fear, could have pretended that the danger wasn't real, could have used spiritual language to help everyone avoid the crushing weight of their reality. Instead, he chose the path of conscious honesty. He asked their enemies for one night's reprieve, not to plan escape, not to negotiate safety, but for the most beautiful reason, so that we may pray to our Lord tonight and invoke His forgiveness. He knows that I love to pray to Him, to recite His book, and to supplicate and ask for His forgiveness. As darkness embraced the camp, something miraculous happened. From every tent came the gentle hum of voices, some reading Quran, some in whispered prayers, some calling out to Allah with hearts laid bare. The historians tell us, and they use this phrase, that it was as if the sound was of the buzzing of the bees, the collective sound of souls preparing to meet their Creator. Then came the moment that shows us what taqwa really means. The Imam gathered his beloved companions, men who had left everything to stand with his truth. His heart must have been breaking, knowing what morning would bring to these pure souls. Yet in this breaking, his taqwa shone brightest. He spoke with overwhelming love and gratitude. I know of no companions more loyal or righteous than my companions, nor a household more pious and devoted than my household. May Allah reward you all on my behalf. But then, and this is where we see authentic God consciousness in action, he faced the human reality of the situation with complete and total honesty. My beloved brothers, the enemy wants none but me. I free you from your oath to me. This darkness can be your friend tonight. Take it as cover and leave with my family members. You are released from any and all obligation. And then, in the most extraordinary act of emotional wisdom, he extinguished the candles in the tent, creating complete darkness. Why? So that if anyone's courage failed in that final hour, they could leave without shame, without anyone seeing their choice. What happened next should make every heart tremble and wonder. In that sacred darkness, one by one voices began to speak, not performing for an audience, but sharing the authentic truth of their choice. By Allah, we will never leave you, and we shall taste death before we abandon you. Not a single soul departed, and their staying wasn't out of obligation or shame. It was the natural response of hearts that had been touched by such authentic and caring leadership. What this sacred night teaches us about real taqwa. Number one, honesty creates deeper connection. We see how the Imam's complete honesty about their danger didn't destroy their faith. It deepened it. When we stop pretending everything is fine and start acknowledging reality in Allah's presence, our connection to Him becomes real rather than performed. Number 2, love includes rather than excludes difficulty. The Imam's love for his companions meant protecting their choice, even if that choice might cause him pain. True taqwa means caring for others' well-being, even when it costs us something. Allah's consciousness flows through our tender care for each other. Number 3, creating sacred space for authentic choice. The extinguished candle is pure spiritual and emotional genius, removing all social pressure so that each person could choose from their authentic center. Real taqwa creates safety for others to be honest about their struggles and limitations. And number 4, integration inspires integration. The most beautiful truth is in His integrated taqwa awaken the integrated commitment in others. When we model authentic God consciousness, feeling our struggles whilst maintaining our connection to divine purpose, it gives others permission to do the same. Moving on to some practical applications and cultivating integrated taqwa within ourselves. Some gentle steps towards living taqwa within ourselves. Number 1, notice without fixing. When difficult emotions arise in us, practice simply noticing them as a loving witness. I see sadness is here. I feel anger moving through me. Don't rush to change anything. Just practice being aware. As if Allah is gently asking, what are you experiencing, my beloved? Number 2, create sacred space for our feelings. Instead of pushing difficult emotions away, imagine creating a quiet room within our hearts where they can rest for a while. Say to your sadness, you can be here. You don't have to hide. This is how we practice Allah's infinite acceptance within ourselves. Number 3, include Allah in our real experience. Throughout your day, practice this gentle awareness. Oh Allah, you see that I'm struggling with anxiety right now. Help me feel your presence with me in this feeling. Remember, He's not wanting for us to be perfect, to be close to us. And number 4, let our prayers become conversations. Transform your formal prayers from presentations into authentic conversations. Include your real worries. Include your genuine gratitude. Include your honest confusion. Allah wants to hear from your true heart and not your performed art. An example of this, again, going back to conditioning. I'm going to share this example because I feel it is an important one. Many times we are conditioned to stay away from the phrase, why me? Why me? Many times for me, I was told, when I express why me, it is a form of ingratitude. I'm showing ingratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I see things differently, and I'll tell you why. When a human soul is under pressure, when a human soul gets to the point of brokenness, when a human soul reaches their limit, in that moment, when they scream or when their soul screams out, why me? Know that individual, that why me, the person knows in their heart of hearts that there is only one entity in the universe who can answer that question. So when they cry out, why me? They're not looking for answers from us. They know where the answer lies. So in that moment, that broken soul, that soul under pressure and struggle, is perhaps probably most connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that sigh of why me is heard by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it shakes His very throne. Please recite it salawat. As we look ahead, we move from consciousness to sacred strength. Having opened our hearts to what true taqwa means, bringing our whole selves into a conscious relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our next sacred step will be sabr. This isn't just patience, as we often think of it, but the profound resilience that grows when God consciousness is tested by life's storms. The beautiful connection. Each virtue we're discovering flows into the next like water finding its way to the sea. Our fitrah gives us the foundation. Taqwā awakens the consciousness of God's presence, and sabr teaches us how to remain in that consciousness even when everything around us quakes. Tonight, we've discovered that true taqwa means bringing our whole selves, including our struggles and our tears, into a conscious relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We witnessed how Imam al-Hussein demonstrated this perfect integration on his final night, creating sacred space for authentic choice, even in the face of certain death. But this beautiful taqwa, this consciousness of Allah's presence, both in joy and in sorrow, had been tested long before that final evening. When the Imam first arrived at the plains of Karbala, his tears flowed the moment he had heard that fateful name. Yet even in his grief, even knowing what lay ahead, his consciousness of divine purpose never wavered. Let us now witness that moment when the integrated taqwa met a great trial. When a heart fully conscious of Allah's presence chose truth over safety, knowing the ultimate cost. The land of grief and trial. The sun hung low in the sky as a weary caravan pressed onward. The desert winds blew soft that day, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Dust clung to hooves, silence clung to hearts. After a long journey marked by hardship and divine resolve, the standard of Imam al-Hussein came to a halt. Imam al-Hussein arrived in Karbala on Thursday, the 2nd of Muharram, in the year 61 after Hijrah. He dismounted slowly, looked out upon the plain, dry, desolate, untouched by time. There was no shelter here, no welcome. Yet something in the wind told him this was the place. He looked towards the horizon and asked, "What is this land called?" They replied, "It is called Al-Ghadiriyah." He asked again, "Does it have another name?" They said, Shatt al-Furat. Then he said, "Is there another name?" They said, "It is called Karbala." The moment the word passed their lips, Karbala, his eyes welled with tears. He said, "O Allah, I seek refuge from you from karb, grief, and bala, trial. This is the land of grief and tribulation." The companions grew still. Even the wind grew quiet. He took a few steps forward, his sandal pressing into the dust. Then he looked towards his family, towards Zainab, toward the children, toward the brave companions behind him, and he said, "Here is the place where our blood will be spilled. Here is the place where our children will be slaughtered. Here is the place where our women will be taken captive." It was not the voice of despair, but the voice of certainty, the kind of certainty only prophets and their inheritors possess. He then called the leaders of the Bani Asad tribe and purchased the land. "We are the family of the Messenger of God. We will be killed here and buried here. When our heads have been severed and our bodies lie upon this plain, you must bury us in this land." He assigned specific graves. He walked the earth and marked the resting places of his sons, his companions, and finally his home. Imagine a man choosing his own grave. Zainab watched in silence. The pain in her chest surged like a storm. One of the young girls asked, "Uncle, are we going to build a home here?" He knelt to her, tears veiling his gaze, and said, "No, little one, we have come here to give our lives." That night, the sky above Karbala remained cloudless, but the stars trembled. The moon did not rise, or if it did, it could not bear to look. When Hussein reached Karbala, a dust-worn banner kissed the sky as Hussein approached with lower eye. The second morn of Muharram came, and with it grief too great to name. He paused his steed on desert sand, and softly asked, "What is this land?" "Al-Ghadiriya," came the call. "Shattil Furat, then after all." "It's Karbala," the tribesman said. At that time, he bowed his head. "O Lord," he cried with breaking breath, "I seek refuge from grief and death. This is the place, I know it well, where angels weep and devils dwell." He walked the ground with solemn pace and marked each martyr's final place. "Here I will fall, and here my kin. Here ends our trial, here it begins." He bought the land with heavy grace and saw his grave, that cursed place. To Banu Asad he softly pled, "When we lie slain, bury our dead." Zainab stood still, her eyes rimmed red. She knew too well what lay ahead. A child tugged gently at his robe and asked, "Will we make this our abode?" He bent and kissed her tearful cheek. "No home but heaven shall we seek." The wind turned cold, the camels cried, even the sun turned back and sighed. For Karbala had now been found. All of heaven kissed that ground. Ala la'natullahi ala al-qawmi al-zalimeen. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un.